Hey, I'm Pete from PMG. Welcome back to the channel. And today's video is about our own project car, this sadly very neglected E39 5 Series. Now, if you watched our How Did I Become a Detailer video, you'll have learned a bit about this car, but the brief summary of it is basically this belonged to my dad, and we bought and sold this car many times over the years. So originally I was still working for Philip Holland Cars, and this came as a trade-in, and I knew my dad would love it. That's come back around 2008, and we picked it up for great trade price at the time, and my dad drove this daily for many, many years. And then this mechanic kind of put the fear into him that it was a BMW, it was using a bit of oil, and he said, need to get rid of that thing. So he traded it in for something fresh, and he did regret it. And a few years later, I was buying and selling cars at the time, as well as running PMG, but I spotted this on Gumtree, and we immediately jumped in the car and went and bought it. At that stage, it had been a little bit neglected from what it was whenever he first had it. There had been a dog in it and things, and there was a bit of a smell. Needed a few bits painted. But we got it back to its former glory, and he drove it again for a few more years before deciding, no, it's time to get it something fresh and retire the old girl. So again, it was traded in, and in fact, actually, I think I sold it that time privately, and it disappeared, and I did regret it massively. A few years passed again, and a local car website I'm on called RMS Motoring, this popped up in the members cars thread. Someone had just purchased it and was going to make a bit of a project out of it, and I begged them to sell it to me. I knew it'd be a great surprise for my dad. So deal was done. We went. I actually filmed it at the time, and we never did anything with that video. But my dad was glad to get it back. But in between times, it had had some further unique improvements. Let's say first things first was busted ass coilovers. It was sitting a lot lower than this. We raised it up so that it was as close to standard height as possible, but they really do ruin how the car drives, and they are knackered at this point. Those will be getting replaced, but we'll talk about that later in the video. So what is the car? Well, it is an 03 520 ES, which is a really unusual spec. Somewhere between an SE and an M Sport in terms of how it's equipped. As you see, it has the SE bumpers, but it is completely color-coded, and that's how it came from the factory. It sits originally on M Sport suspension, and then it has those unique, I think they're 17-inch wheels, but they're unique to the ES. No chrome, thankfully, something that we hate to see on an SE, horrible chrome, but it's not the high gloss finish that you would get in some of the M Sports. It just is dark trim. And then the interior gets an M Sport steering wheel, it gets the dark headliner, but it has cloth seats, and in this car, the seats are blue, the carpets are blue, the plastics are blue, it is blue-tastic in there. It's something I don't really like, but it's part of the heritage of the car. So how did I get to own it? Well, my dad had sort of had his time with it. It was getting to be an old car, and it was getting to need a bit of upkeep, and certainly you'll see we'll take this for a drive. There's quite a bit of mechanical stuff to do. Basic engine sound, but he decided it was time for something new, and we managed to get him a lovely E-Class convertible, E350 diesel supercar, and he very kindly gave this car to me. I've neglected it. It sat outside for probably the better part of a year, but I knew this was going to be an overhaul process, and we're going to have to do a lot with this car. It needs a lot of mechanical work, it needs a lot of cosmetic work, then we're going to be detailing it, and then we'll do a few mods and stuff as well as time passes. I would like to have this car finished so that we can take it out to a few events this summer and just enjoy. It's not a quick car, but it's smooth. It's got that lovely big 2.2 straight six under the bonnet. Sounds great. We'll do some mods to hopefully make it sound a bit better. And then I have other plans like changing these wheels. I'm going to put a set of Alpinas on it. We had done some mods to this car when we owned it through various stages. The very first thing we ever did was add the M Sport boot lip onto the car, and then later down the line we ended up adding an Alpina lower front splitter as well. I'm going to be changing that suspension out for some H&R lowering springs and some relatively standard shocks, and just getting rid of those terrible coilovers altogether. But it's really rattly, the suspension on this. Also, it had been popping out of second gear on occasion, not very often, but clutch is good, brakes are good, all of the usual sorts of things is good. it does use a little bit of oil, and somebody has added this ludicrous system that we'll show you later on that I'd probably look at reversing. But yeah, it's going to be a good bit of a project for us. What we're going to do today, we'll take it a little bit of a drive, can't go too far, just around the industrial estate here, just assess if anything really has failed or given up the ghost since it's been sitting off the road for the better part of a year. And then obviously we know the suspension was knocking, so it'll probably get bottom arms, and it'll probably definitely get new shocks and springs, and dear knows what else it'll need for, you know, bushes and stuff that will perish with wear and time. 140,000 miles in this car. We did generally keep it in pretty good nick. It got painted here and there over the years because these do corrode. It's a BMW of this generation. Rust is one of the main things that kills them. But this was pretty good that way. But no doubt there'll be some other things that need painted. But today it's all about assessing it. So we'll take it out, get it a bit of a drive, see what's what with how it drives, and then we're going to do just a deep wash on it. I'm not going to get into any real intense detail because it's going to need some things painted. I'm going to do a few test patches on a few things that are questionable whether I would be happy with them without painting them, even though maybe to most people there's nothing wrong with them, but to me they're really detracting from the car. So let's get out a spin and see just how bad that suspension is. So, road test time. The suspension is extremely broken and rattly. But we're just talking before we started recording that you were literally a little boy whenever Dad first originally got this car.
Really weird thing to think about.
And then there's many a time that because of your penchant for broken ass cars over the years, you've had to borrow this on many occasions.
Yeah, many occasions.
And now it's kind of going to get restored and be a spare car, and because we still have broken cars, it'll no doubt get used for similar things as years go on. But the sort of what we're doing this drive for is to see, it's been lined up for almost a year really, and not even really been started in that time. Now the reason I took it off the road to begin with is because the suspension is literally hanging out of it. I don't know if you can pick it up in the video, but you get every bump is a rattle in it.
Yeah, it really is.
That'll be down partly to the truly awful coilovers that are fitted to it, and then also it's a BMW, so it's probably going to need bottom arm bushes and stuff as well.
Yeah.
It was, can you remember it popping out of second gear a
Yeah,
bit?
it was.
So
for some reason
we'll probably have to stick a second-hand gearbox in it, and look at the ride quality. It's bumpy. It's not like what I remember from driving it when I owned it before.
No, definitely not.
Before the coilovers went in.
Definitely not.
So I think decent standard shocks and some H&R springs will be plenty. But other than that, everything seems good with it. It's came up the temperature okay. It's running really smooth, just the way it always has.
It's always been a smooth engine.
It's as slow as it always has been.
Totally dead.
But it is smooth. So yeah, I think first thing will be get the mechanical sorted. We'll wash it today and decide exactly what needs painted on the car, which I would say I'll want to paint more of it than what Dad ever probably would have done.
Yeah. Definitely.
But it'll be nice to have this back on the road again.
Yeah, that will be. A bit of family history.
It is a good bit of family history. So let's get it back, get it washed, and see what we're dealing with under the year's worth of crap.
Get that work though.
So we have washed the car, and it wasn't an in-depth wash by any means. There's no point doing that at this stage because the car's going to need Clyde. It's going to need a lot of aggressive deep cleaning. But since it's to go and get mechanicals done, it's to go and get paint, etc. done, the whole point of this was just to get the bare bones grime off the car, and then we can actually walk around it and assess what we're going to paint on the car and try and get an idea of what sort of money that we're going to spend. So let's pop the camera off and you can walk around it with me and we'll see, am I in for a huge expenditure? Starting back here, are you guys seeing the potential I see? Imagine what this will look like when it's actually finished. I think it'll look absolutely amazing. But a good wash and dress in the tyres is give it a good lift already. But as we get in closer, you'll see the real story here. This bonnet was painted before and it is not a good job. You can see where it's all sank back. The texture of it is absolutely horrendous. Now I could possibly sand that back and leave with a somewhat decent finish, but there's also a load of chips all across it that really I would just be better painting the bonnet. Need to replace this badge. It is absolutely ruined. And then these grills, when we got the car back the last time, someone had fitted the black kidney grills to it, and Dad made the absolutely right decision of let's get new ones out of BMW. So they look a little bit grubby, but they just need cleaned. That's just from sitting about, and as I said, we're not getting into the in-depth cleaning until it becomes time to do it. What we will be replacing, as you can see, that headlight is really quite dulled and tarnished looking. I could do a headlight restoration in that, but these lenses are really cheap to buy. And if the bonnet's painted and looking really fresh, and you can see the difference in the driver's lens isn't that bad. I think we actually put a new headlight in this at one time, and you can see the difference. Now I could, as I said, do a resto, but for the sake of the price of two lenses, it would just freshen up the front of the car so much. The bumper doesn't require any paint. We got that painted, well, probably quite a while ago now, certainly before our last ownership, but it actually has stood the test of time pretty well, so I'm happy enough with that. Now, rust is something on BMWs of this generation you just have to contend with, and this car is really good that way, but this wing's getting painted. Now, there is the little tiny blemish starting here, but look at all of these awful chips, lacquer failure, and then we have lacquer starting to fail along the top edge of that wing. So this is getting painted as well. So we're into a bonnet and definitely a driver's wing so far. Now the sill on this side is all good, as are the doors, absolutely no corrosion. This is a little tatty looking with some chips that have been pretty poorly touched in again. So I'd probably paint that. And then there are some deeper marks on the doors. You can see how swirly the car is in general, but see this little scratch here? I'm going to just try my best to fix that as good as I can. Now, the trims and stuff are going to need a lot of restoration. This one is just really badly faded. And again, and around here too. But that will all restore. See, with all of this trim, it'll need a lot more in-depth cleaning than it got today. Roof is good, apart from the obvious swirls and scratches, but nothing that we can't sort out with a good detail. And the same with the rear arches, again, really solid. Normally a weak point, but we really kept, well, Dad really kept on top of this throughout any points of his ownership. It's all good that way, but there is a little bit of corrosion starting here on the fuel cap, so yes, we'll be painting that. The back bumper requires no paint, which is great. It is all good, as is the tailgate. It is all good. I do think there is the tiniest bit of corrosion starting around this boot log, which to paint a whole tailgate for, I definitely don't want to be doing a blend in somewhere. Like a lot of people would, blend at this line, have a tape line there. No, I can't have that. My OCD wouldn't allow it. So I might just live with this for a little while, and then we will see about painting it down the line. We'll see what the body shop comes up with. Another badge to be required. Lights are all good at the back end of the car. Spoiler's a little bit loose, and it will need to come off to really clean up all of this properly anyway. This is something ideally I'd love to do in customers' cars, is remove things like this, but ultimately it costs, and people don't want to go to those extremes all the time. Onto this quarter panel, again, all good. No corrosion. That is a reflection of my fingers. I started to panic there. I thought it was a huge blister loss. It's just my sausage fingers. Wheels, again, I didn't go mad with cleaning them. These are not going to stay. I'm going to be replacing these with Alpinas, or probably Alpina replicas, to be honest, but that style of wheel anyway. Then this door, and the car on this side in general, loads of people have opened doors up into this. Now, I will never get this perfect without repainting it. I certainly get it much better than it is, but without repainting that, it's never going to be perfect again. And this is just as bad. Just people utterly careless, that just no care whatsoever, just open doors on in. Some paint that's dent removal. It's very hard to pick that up on the screen here, but there's some fine dent, so I might end up painting these two doors. We'll see. But this sill definitely needs painted as we go along. This is where the corrosion has actually started to set in, and you can see that it feels pretty solid, but sills are a weak point, so are jacking points on these. So we'll have to address that. You can see where the mud flap is dug into this wing, and it is now missing as well. And then we're getting a bit of corrosion in around here where a mud flap has been ripped out. It's damaged the paint and stuff. We have no idea how that happened, but replacement mud flap. I'm painting this wing as well. I'm painting the bonnet and the other wing for sure. Is there any other corrosion though? No. Yes, one little bit. Okay, that helps me make that decision. And then this wing mirror, common problem on BMWs this generation, this weird sort of like rubberized texture is over like an aluminium base, and it just starts to corrode from the inside, then it flakes off. I think we can paint this without replacing the mirror. I think we can get that done. I will ask that question at the body shop, but that will need addressed because that is just going to look so bad. We definitely need some window wipers too. Absolute mess. But I mean, it's an 03 car with 100, I think there's 129 or 139,000 miles on it. So all in all, this big girl still looks pretty good. And as E39s go, it's really not bad at all, is it? Yeah. But I know what you want to see. This is a detailing channel. What about the swirls? Well, let's see what potential there will be. We'll do a little demo on this door. There is definitely life in the old girl yet, which pleases me no end. Now, I have to try and bear in mind that we need to keep costs somewhat sensible. At the end of the day, it is an old car that's not worth a huge amount of money, but it just has a huge amount of sentimental value to me, my brother, my dad, and it would be nice to have this back on the road, sitting, looking better than it's ever looked before, that we can jump in and drive it whenever we take a fancy, take it to cars and coffee things, and really have as a spare backup car as well, because it is handy for us to have that type of thing. So what's it going to cost? Well, there's a few issues to deal with mechanically. I have no idea what that's going to cost, and no idea what that is going to uncover as well. That'll be the next video. We'll go and get it up there, mechanics, get it up on a ramp and give it a real good going over. But I think the process is going to be sort the mechanical side of things and get the car MOT'd. And then we can at least use it again in the meantime. And then it's going to be getting it to the body shop. Cost-wise, I think we're going to be in and around 800 quid at the body shop. Maybe a little bit more. Just depend. I think the more I think about it, I'm just going to paint those two doors on the passenger side as well. So we're going to end up painting the bonnet, both wings, the passenger side sill. I'm fixing the rust that's sort of gathered in around there, and then paint those two doors on the passenger side. That's as much paintwork as is going to be needed. then it's going to be a case of a really, really good detail on the car, and obviously ceramic coat, everything. Then there's a few other random things. The badges obviously need replaced. We'll do those headlight lenses because there's not really a lot of cost in doing those, and they will make a huge difference how it looks. And then putting those Alpina wheels on. Now I've seen replica wheels which look really good, and they seem to have really good fitment. I know people can turn their nose up at replica wheels, but at the end of the day, a set of genuine Alpinas for that car, one, are going to be ridiculously hard to find, and two, an astronomical amount of money. So a good set of reps are going to give me the desired look that, it's just going to improve how the car looks in my eyes. And ultimately, that's why you modify a car. You do it for your own visual appearance side of things. Say we're going to take those shocks, the coilovers out, and put relatively standard shocks and then some H&R lower springs into it. So the car will sit nice on those wheels as well. And then I'm going to put an exhaust back box on. One, I think it would just fill out the back of the car visually. I think it would look nice, a little twin side exit exhaust, very Alpina style. And then it'll add a little bit of noise to it as well. But mechanically, it's definitely going to need a lot of suspension components. Brakes and stuff, I don't think that they're actually too bad. I don't think there's going to be a huge amount of cost there. But replace the perishable things. And again, this is like a rolling restoration. This is about getting it onto the road as a usable car. So we're going to do absolutely everything that it requires in terms of keeping it legal and making it safe. Am I going to replace things just for the sake of it? No, we won't be doing that. And then say round it out with a detail. There's loads of other random little things. Like, I don't know if you've spotted it at any time, but the cars had LED bulbs put in everywhere, and they do that flickering thing that they just don't agree with the canvas system in this car. So we're going to replace all of the bulbs with just the standard halogen type bulbs, and same with somebody has put the LED style angel eyes into it, and I actually love the color of the original halogen ones. That is, I can remember when I was in school, these were brand new, and I remember walking out and there being one of these sitting with the side lights on, waiting obviously to pick up one of their children from school, and just thinking it was the coolest thing ever. And it's always something I've loved about facelift E39, so that's going to be important to me to get that back. And then the interior, I'm going to start off with just a good deep clean, and then we're going to get that steering wheel recovered. And for now, that's as much as I'm going to do with it. That's still a lot to get on with, and you're probably looking at the best part of probably 3.5, 4 grand just to get this to that level again. But I know what we're going to be left with is a really, really eye-catching, clean, tidy E39. I really think it's a pretty decent example. Like, I mean, if we were to detail this car now, and I was to fix a lot of those chips in a much neater fashion, it probably would present really well as it is. But I want to have it as something that looks really good, and something that we can take the meets and events and stuff and be really proud of. What is a car that's getting quite thin on the ground now. You just don't see our E39s about the roads like you used to. So yeah, that's our introduction to it. Hopefully you've enjoyed the deviation from our detailing type videos, and you'd like to see a bit more of our project car madness as things go on. I'm forever wasting good money making bad decisions on cars. So drop us a comment if there's anything you would like to see and focus on. The next video in the series on this car is probably going to be quite a few weeks away by the time it gets in. We do have a slot booked with the garage to get it in, and I'm going to hopefully get the car MOT'd well before springtime. I actually would like to have the whole thing finished for then. So expect regular enough updates on this. And the next video up is back to a good old detail one. It's going to be an old Defender, which is a detailer's nightmare of a thing. We've covered that in the video too, so be sure to check it out. All right, guys, thanks for watching, and we'll chat to you soon.